This is Lesson 12. As you begin to build more complex movies, specifically ones that utilize movie clips and in some cases movie clips nested within movie clips, it becomes very difficult to navigate such a movie and especially try and find your way back once you've gone a few levels down. To know what I'm talking about, you can try navigating the file that you created within this lesson throughout the written exercises. And that's exactly the file we're looking at here. In such a situation where we've got movie clips within movie clips, how do you find your way around and not get lost? The answer is there's a couple of cool techniques which are important to know, especially at this stage of the game. And we're going to find out how to navigate movie clips in a number of different ways. To get started, let's go ahead and open up the fl12_video.fla lesson file. And this is essentially the completed version of the file from this lesson and the written exercises. Now, as you may recall, to get to this point, we had to do a lot of work. We had to build quite a few movie clips, and some of those movie clips are built from other movie clips. So they go a couple of levels down, and in cases like this where you're going beyond the main timeline and moving across a number of timelines, it's very, very easy to get lost and hard to find your way around if you're simply trying to make edits or you're just trying to check your work. Now, the first thing we're going to do is think about how we would typically go and edit a symbol. Now, if the task is I want to go and I want to edit the landing gear, which is its own movie clip nested somewhere in this movie, it's not really intuitive as to how I get there. My first inclination would be to look for the landing gear on the main timeline, but as we know, it doesn't exist on the main timeline. It exists in a completely different timeline in another movie clip somewhere else. So one thing we could do is if we're trying to reach the landing gear, we could go over to our handy library panel here on the right and simply find it and double click it to edit it. So if I do that, the only problem is it brings me to the landing gear directly, so I don't have to worry so much about how to find it. However, it doesn't show me the landing gear in context of other things inside of my movie, which is problematic because generally once you start becoming more comfortable with symbols, you find that using edit in place, which is double-clicking the symbol on the stage to edit it, is far more intuitive and much better when you're trying to work. In this case, this isn't really going to do the job, so what we're going to do is we're going to return back to the main timeline and figure out another way. So at the top left-hand corner of the stage, you're actually going to see this navigation area here, and we're going to click on the Scene 1 link here. Now, what's interesting is as you go into a symbol to edit it, whether you're using edit in place or going directly from the library, this breadcrumb style menu here shows you where you are at all times. So this is the first thing we're actually going to start paying attention to. Right here, this shows me that I'm actually in a movie clip symbol called landing gear, which happens to be sitting on the main timeline, which is represented here by Scene 1. So to get back to Scene 1, it's fairly easy. I just click on that link and it brings me right back. But now again, we want to use edit in place because that makes a lot more sense and we can actually perform any edits or changes in context of other things going on in the movie and see what's going on around us. So my first inclination is I'm going to try and get to the landing gear by double clicking on it. So I'm just simply going to bring my pointer here, hover it over the landing gear on the stage and double click it. However, that doesn't exactly get me to where I'm going yet because the landing gear is yet another level down. So we'll see again if we look at the top left-hand corner here in this navigation area, which I treat pretty much like a breadcrumb menu. It shows me that I'm actually inside of a movie clip called Full Airplane, which again sits on the main timeline. So Full Airplane contains landing gear, but we still have to go down one more level to edit the landing gear itself and its specific timeline and graphics. So once more, I'm going to double click on the landing gear, and that brings me directly to the landing gear movie clip where I can edit its timeline and work with the graphics on the stage. Now what's interesting is there are a couple of visual indicators that we can rely on here to tell us exactly where we're at in our movie. First of all, when using edit in place, you may have noticed that anything but the actual current symbol that you're editing appears grayed out or faded out in the background. So you'll notice that the airplane body and the other parts, as well as the background, the clouds, and the runway, all appear grayed out because they're not part of the current symbol we're editing. The only thing that actually shows up at full opacity are these three wheels here that make up the landing gear. So that's our first indicator of where we are right now. The second indicator is if we look in the upper left-hand corner again, back to this navigation area, and it shows us the exact hierarchy, again, like a breadcrumb menu of where exactly we are. So this tells us that we're inside right now of a symbol called landing gear, specifically a movie clip, which is indicated by the icon. inside of another movie clip called Full Airplane, which is inside of, or rather sits on, the main timeline. So you can think of this as the "You Are Here" sign. This tells us exactly where we are in our movie, how many levels deep, and the name of all of the different symbols that we're working with right now. Now, in some cases, we can also use the timeline panel itself to let us know where we are. In this case, the timelines for these different movie clips are going to look somewhat different based on what animations each one has, what graphics are placed, how many layers are there. But this is probably not the best visual indicator because it doesn't really tell us anything about the type of symbol we're in, and it also doesn't tell us the name of the symbol anywhere down here. So really our best visual indicator is right up here in this navigation area, as well as just being mindful of what graphics are the current graphics that belong to the symbol we're editing. Now what's nice is this area lets me step back and forth fairly easily. If I want to go up one level to full airplane, I can do that just by clicking on it. It's basically like a hyperlink here, or I can use this back button here, and I can use that until I get back to the main timeline. So it allows me to walk my way through that hierarchy. So far, that's a lot better than using the library panel because we can edit in place. We have a clear idea of where we are in the hierarchy of the movie, and we can get a number of different visual indicators to help us along. Now, the nice thing is there's actually yet another way that we can navigate our movie, and this is very, very important once our movies become very, very complex. And this movie is on its way, but there are movies that could possibly become even more complex. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a little known panel inside of Flash called the Movie Explorer. So let's go ahead and open up the Movie Explorer panel by choosing Window, Movie Explorer. Now keep in mind the Movie Explorer panel is not open by default in most of the preset workspaces, so we're going to have to go ahead and open it up ourselves. And here is our Movie Explorer panel, and you can think of this basically as a big hierarchy, diagram, or tree, if you will, of your movie. It gives us a different way to look at our movie, and more importantly, another way to navigate through our movie without just using the stage itself. Now, at the top of our Movie Explorer panel, we have a number of buttons which allow us to filter what things we'd like to show or hide inside of this area down here. Now, if I go ahead and expand where it says Scene 1 again represents our main timeline. It shows me something pretty basic, which is that we have 3 movie clips on the main timeline called Clouds, Full Airplane, and Runway. So it shows me some basic symbols that are at the top level of Scene 1. So this actually allows me to navigate by scene. Now, at the top, if I'd like, I can press in or out some of these buttons to see different things. So for instance, I have the Show Text button pressed in right now, but I don't have any text in my movie, so it doesn't really apply. But I have the Show Movie Clips button and Graphics button pressed in, which it should be by default. If I unpress this or uncheck it, you'll see that those things disappear in that view. So we definitely want those back, so we're going to click them again. Now, what happens if I want to reveal any action script used throughout my movie? I can go ahead and click the Show Action Script button, and what's cool is that it actually shows me listings for wherever I have some type of action script in my movie. And it shows me I've got a stop action on frame 60. Now, what's especially cool about this is if I can't see that right now, let's say I move this over, and I really don't know where that action is, but I know I need to get to it and modify it somehow, I can actually navigate to that by double-clicking this, and what that does is it not only advances the playhead to that frame on the timeline, but more importantly, it opens up the Actions panel so that I can edit that piece of action script code. Now, the truth is I'd like to see just a little bit more here. I can see the top-level movie clips that sit on the main timeline, but I know that those movie clips contain more, and that's really what I'm interested in getting to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the Movie Explorer settings by clicking this last button here, and that opens up the Movie Explorer settings dialog box. Now, this is an alternate way to filter what I see inside the Movie Explorer panel, but it also gives me a couple of other options. For instance, I may want to turn off text here, which is the equivalent of using this button. What I also want to do is I want to see all symbol definitions in my movie. So I want to see all of the symbols that I've created that are actually in use in my movie. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. Now, what that does is that gives me another view of things inside of my movie by symbol and not necessarily by layer or timeline or whatever it happens to be. What I'm also going to do is go ahead and check off layers, and I'm going to click OK. Wow, so this is a much different view, and we actually get to see exactly what's going on in a pretty detailed view in our movie. Now, I'm realizing after the fact the layers are too much, because I'm really not that interested in what layer a particular movie clip sits on. I'm just more interested in the movie clip itself, regardless of where it is. So I can always go back here and using this button, unclick show frames and layers. So that cleans it up just a little bit. I can also do the same for action script. Now, getting back to our original point, what we need to do is we need to find our way to that landing gear. And this time we're going to do it differently than we did it before, which was simply clicking our way through the movie using the stage. Here, we actually are going to use the symbol definitions listing, and we're going to find it that way. So what we'll see here is that symbol definitions shows us how all of our symbols are defined inside of our movie, as well as what symbols are included inside of them, if any. Now, if I'm looking for landing gear, we'll see that landing gear is actually shown here as a child movie clip included inside of full airplane. So if I want to get to landing gear, rather than clicking my way a few times through the stage, what's a lot simpler is I simply double click that. And look what happens. That brings us exactly to where we were earlier in the video, except we didn't have to sort of blindly click our way through. We told the Movie Explorer exactly where we wanted to go, and it brought us directly down to that level. And as we can see here again, if we look at the top left-hand corner here where our navigation area is, it shows us again that we're inside of landing gear, inside of full airplane, within scene 1 or the main timeline. And I can always navigate my way back to scene 1 using that same Movie Explorer to different movie clips, specifically that are included on the main timeline. And I can pick and choose and alternate between these methods. So there's no one right or wrong way. It's depending on what you prefer to do. But the Movie Explorer can be really, really powerful when it comes to this. So we've seen a number of different methods here for navigating very complex movies, especially those which include a number of different symbols, specifically movie clips. And again, this may seem like a simple concept, but it's a little thing that'll help you get a long way when it comes to building and working with much more complex movies.